Let me tell you something. You're never going to build anything lasting if you only move when you feel like it. If you only grind when you're excited. If you only pray when things are falling apart. If you only show up when it's easy. That's not consistency, that's convenience. And there's a big difference. A discipline is what carries you when desire dies. Because desire will die. The fire that gets you started won't always be there. Life has a way of throwing water on your passion. People stop clapping. Doors close. Delays happen. You start to question if you even heard God right. And in those moments when you can't feel what you once felt, when the goosebumps are gone and the path looks foggy, that's when discipline has to take the wheel. You think successful people feel inspired every day? You think they wake up every morning ready to conquer the world? No. They wake up tired, unsure, sometimes frustrated, but they show up. Because the secret isn't in how you feel, it's in what you do consistently, regardless of how you feel. We raised a generation that's high on hype, but low on habits. We get excited quick. We start things big, but we don't finish. You shout when you get the word, you run when you get the revelation. But as soon as reality sets in, you back up. You tap out. You find excuses to sound spiritual. Maybe this wasn't my season. Maybe God closed his door. No, baby, that wasn't God. That was your lack of discipline dressed up in religious language. You got to be honest with yourself. Are you living off of inspiration, or have you trained yourself in discipline? Because inspiration is a good starter, but discipline is the finisher. Easy to be consistent when you're in the spotlight. But what do you do in the shadows when nobody sees you? When nobody knows your name? When you're not being celebrated? That's when discipline is formed. That's where consistency is forged. In the unseen places. In the midnight hours. When you're showing up, not for recognition, but because you know obedience is better than applause. Some of you are waiting on a feeling to move again. You're praying for motivation. You're asking God to light the fire again. But what if God is saying, I already gave you the word. I already gave you the vision. Now I'm waiting on you to walk it out. See, faith without works is dead. And discipline is the work that faith demands. You got to walk it when you don't feel it. You got to show up when it looks like nothing's changing. Is this to see? It's not glamorous. It's not always exciting. Sometimes it feels like you're planting seeds in hard ground. You pray and nothing moves. You sow and nothing grows. But keep digging, keep watering, keep showing up. Because there's a harvest that doesn't come from hype. It comes from habit. The enemy isn't even attacking your gift. He's attacking your rhythm. Because he knows if he can disrupt your consistency, he can derail your calling. He doesn't need to destroy you. He just needs to distract you long enough to delay you. You keep starting over because you won't stay planted. But hear me. No seed can grow if you keep digging it up to see if it's working. You have to trust the process long enough to produce the promise. I need you to understand this. Your emotions are indicators, not dictators. They can let you know something's going on, but they should never be the ones making the decisions. Emotions can tell you you're tired, but they can't tell you to quit. Emotions can show you you're frustrated, but they can't stop you from being faithful. You got to learn how to feel what you feel, but still do what you know. Maturity is when you can acknowledge your feelings without bowing to them. Maturity is when you can say, I'm tired, but I'm still moving. I'm frustrated, but I'm still pressing. I'm disappointed, but I'm still showing up. Because if you wait until your emotions line up with your assignments, you'll never get anything done. Sometimes you have to obey when your heart isn't in it yet. Sometimes you've got to trust God, even when Your feelings are telling you to turn back. You don't need your feelings to validate what God already confirmed. Just because you don't feel like you're growing doesn't mean you're not. Just because you don't feel like your effort is working doesn't mean it isn't. God doesn't move by feelings. He moves by faith. And faith is often walking blind by your feelings scream, this makes no sense. You've got to have the kind of obedience that doesn't ask for emotional permission. You've got to have a nevertheless in your spirit. I feel like quitting. Nevertheless, I'm showing up. I feel like giving up. Nevertheless, I'm trusting him. See, we live in a time where we are taught to follow your heart. But sometimes your heart is wrong. Sometimes your heart is still healing. Sometimes your heart is still wounded. And if you follow a broken heart, you'll walk in broken circles. You got to anchor yourself in truth. That doesn't change, even when your emotions do. The word doesn't shift based on your mood. The calling doesn't disappear because you had a bad day. Purpose doesn't pack up and leave just because you woke up discouraged. The most dangerous thing about being emotionally led is that it always delays your development. Emotions will tell you you're not ready. Emotions will say, just wait till you feel better. But if you keep waiting on a better feeling, you'll miss a God moment. Because growth often happens in the tension. It's in that space between how you feel and what you know that your faith has to stretch and your roots go deeper. Consistency demands that you silence some voices. And sometimes the loudest voice you'll have to silence is your own. That inner critic that tells you you're not enough. That fear that whispers, what if you fail? That insecurity that reminds you of your past. Those voices don't come from the spirit. They come from your soul, your flesh, your fear. And you've got to decide, I'm not going to let these emotions run my life anymore. There's power in showing up when your soul says stay in bed. There's strength in putting one foot in front of the other when anxiety is trying to paralyze you. There's glory in obedience that isn't wrapped in excitement but rooted in trust. When you obey God in the absence of feelings, it shows you really trust him. Because it's easy to obey when the wind is behind you and you're riding high. But can you still obey when the wind is in your face and the waves are crashing and everything in you says, stop? There's a next level that only opens through emotional discipline. Some of you have the vision. You got the gift. You even have the opportunity. But what keeps sabotaging your momentum is your inability to manage your emotions. You explode when things don't go your way. You ghost when it gets tough. You break commitments because you feel off. But real maturity is when you no longer need your emotions to be aligned before you move. Stop treating your feelings like facts. Stop building your life on what's fleeting. Feelings come and go, but your purpose doesn't. Your assignment doesn't. Your calling doesn't. And your consistency can't afford to be a slave to how you feel. Learn how to worship through weariness. Learn how to work through worry. Learn how to praise through pressure. Because sometimes your obedience will unlock the very breakthrough your feelings couldn't see coming. Take walking. You're asking God for elevation, but you don't want to feel the weight that comes with it. You want to go higher, but you don't want the pressure that builds you for the height. You want increase without endurance. You want growth without pain. But I came to tell you tonight, there is no promotion without pressure. There is no breakthrough without burden. There is no breakthrough without burden. There is no breakthrough without burden. There is no breakthrough without grinding through some things that test every part of who you are. You've got to push past the pain of progress. Progress is painful. That's why so many people settle. That's why they stop at average. Because the moment growth starts to stretch you, it also starts to expose you. It exposes your fears, your weaknesses, your excuses. And now you're faced with the part of yourself that's been hiding behind potential. You prayed for growth, but you didn't know it would come with discomfort. You asked God to take you deeper, but you didn't realize deeper meant digging. There's no elevation without excavation. God has to dig down and uproot some things in you that can't go with you to the next level. Some of you are praying for God to open doors, but the truth is he's trying to open you. Trying to open your mind, open your heart, open your discipline. And that kind of opening is painful. That kind of opening makes you want to retreat. But if you want real growth, you've got to push through the part that hurts. God still made it build muscle without resistance. The weight you're carrying isn't punishment, it's preparation. You're not under attack because you're off track. Sometimes the pressure is a sign that you're finally on the path to purpose. Don't confuse pain with misdirection. Just because it hurts doesn't mean it's wrong. Sometimes the pain is proof that something is being born, that something is being developed. Something in you is waking up. Hey. You've been praying for God to enlarge your territory, but do you understand that with every stretch comes a tear? That expansion is uncomfortable. That the promised land doesn't come with pillows. It comes with giants. It comes with walls. It comes with warfare. And if you want to possess the thing God has for you, you can't be soft. You can't be fragile. You can't back out every time it gets hard. You've got to push. When the doors don't open right away, push. When the results don't show up on the timeline you imagine, push. When your emotions tell you to give up, push. When the support system you counted on walks away, push anyway. Because growth is not about convenience. It's about commitment. And commitment means staying with it even when it's costing you something. Some of you are standing in the middle of pressure right now and you're wondering, God, why does it feel like everything is closing in on me? But maybe God isn't crushing you. Maybe he's pressing you. Maybe he's pressing the oil out of you because the anointing doesn't come from comfort. It comes from crushing. The version of you that can carry the next assignment won't come easy. It will be forged in fire. It will be formed in pressure. It will be refined in pain. You keep waiting for everything to calm down before you move forward. But what if God is saying, I'm training you to move in the middle of the storm? Because some of your greatest breakthroughs won't come in peace. They'll come in pain. You'll get your vision in the valley. You'll hear his voice in the fire. You'll get clarity in the chaos. God doesn't always speak through ease. Sometimes he speaks through endurance. And let me say this, discipline is not legalism. It's not about perfection, it's about persistence. It's not about doing everything right, it's about not giving up. You fall, get back up. You miss a step, take the next one. You get discouraged, wipe your tears and keep walking. That's discipline. That's the kind of consistency that builds legacy. Don't wait for desire to carry. It was never meant to. You've got to decide that you're going to keep going. Decide that your future is worth the fight. Decide that your destiny deserves your discipline. You can't wait for it to feel good. You have to move even when your emotions don't. Because if you're only consistent when it's convenient, you'll never grow into the person you are called to be. Decide today, I'm gonna be disciplined even when I'm discouraged. I'm gonna be faithful even when I'm frustrated. I'm gonna be consistent even when I feel nothing, because my calling is not up for debate every time my emotions shift. God can do more with your discipline than he ever could with your desire. Keep walking. Let me tell you something. Just because it doesn't look like it's working doesn't mean God isn't working. There is a divine purpose hiding inside your daily grind. And you've got to stop overlooking it just because it doesn't shine. Everybody wants the platform, but nobody wants the process. Everybody wants the crown, but nobody wants the cross. But if you're going to be consistent, you've got to understand that purpose is not built on moments, it's built on movement. You keep waiting on some big, loud sign from heaven to confirm what you already know in your spirit. But God isn't always in the earthquake. He's not always in the fire. Sometimes he's in the whisper. Sometimes he's in the routine. Sometimes he's in the day-to-day obedience that feels ordinary. The prayer you whispered when nobody was listening. The sacrifice you made when nobody said thank you. The time you showed up when your heart wasn't in it. That's where purpose is forming. You're asking God to bless your life, but he's trying to build your character. Because if he gave you the platform before you had the discipline, it would crush you. If he opened the door before you learned consistency, you'd step through it and fall flat on your face. And so he hides purpose in repetition, in the everyday, in the unnoticed. Because he's not just preparing the blessing for you, he's preparing you for the blessing. You keep trying to skip the steps, but it's in the steps where your strength is developed. It's in the repetition where your roots go deep. A tree can't bear fruit until it's been planted long enough to survive the winds. And you're wondering why you're still in the same place. But maybe God is saying, I've got you here because I'm establishing your roots before I reveal your fruit. Don't despise the grind. Don't curse the repetition. It may feel like you're just going in circles, but God is actually building something in you. Every time you show up, every time you stay faithful, every time you keep pressing, it's a brick in the foundation of your purpose. And when the time comes for the next level, you won't have to scramble to get ready because your consistency will have already prepared you. Purpose doesn't feel exciting every day. It doesn't come with glitter and applause. Sometimes it feels like sacrifice. Sometimes it feels like obscurity. Sometimes it feels like nobody sees you, nobody hears you, and nobody appreciates you. But heaven is watching. God sees your faithfulness in the dark. And the word says, he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. That word diligently, that's consistent. That's devotion. That's doing it again. Even when the results don't show yet. And let me say this, you can't just wait for purpose to drop on you like a miracle. Purpose is something you walk out day by day. You discover it in motion. Stop waiting for your big break. Your break is already here. It's called Monday morning. It's called that job you don't like but still show up to. It's called the routine that feels boring but is teaching you how to endure. It doesn't start in the spotlight. It starts in the shadow. See, we want to be used by God, but we don't want to be trained by God. And training doesn't feel spiritual. It feels repetitive. It feels slow. But don't confuse slow with stuck. Just because it's taking time doesn't mean it's wasted time. God is not in a rush. He's eternal. And he will take his time to mold you, to shape you, to refine you. And the way he does that is through the grind, through the daily discipline, through the practice, through the pressure. You can't just pray for your purpose. You've got to prepare for it. And preparation means doing what's necessary over and over again until what was once difficult becomes automatic. Until what used to train you now develops you. Until your consistency becomes a weapon in the hand of God. enemy doesn't fear your inspiration. He fears your endurance. Because he knows once you lock into rhythm, once you start walking with consistency, once you start waiting on perfect conditions and start trusting the process, you become unstoppable. Not because of how fast you move, but because you don't quit. Because you stay planted. Because you grind with purpose, not performance, not perfection, but persistence. There is divine power in your daily obedience. Keep walking. You got to stop letting your emotions be the driver. Emotions are real, yes. Emotions are loud, yes, but they're not always right. You can't make destiny decisions based on temporary feelings. You can't build a consistent life when your actions are dictated by the weather of your emotions. Because if you're ruled by how you feel, you'll always be up and down, in and out, hot and cold. The day you're all in, the next day, you're completely disconnected. And destiny can't be developed in that kind of instability. And don't think the pain means you're out of his will. Sometimes it means you're right in the middle of it. Jesus had to push past the pain. Paul had to push past the pain. Joseph, David, Esther, every one of them had a moment where they had to decide, will I press through or will I pull back? And every time they pushed, purpose was unlocked. Pain isn't your enemy, it's your trainer. It's shaping you. It's sharpening you. It's showing you what's in you that you didn't know you had, because you don't know what's really in you until you've been pressed. You don't know the power of your own obedience until you've had to obey through tears, through silence, through disappointment, through fatigue. That's when real progress starts. Not in your comfort, but in your commitment. The pain will make you want to stop, but don't stop. The pain will whisper, this isn't worth it, but it is. The pain will lie to you and tell you, nothing's changing, but something is changing. It's just happening in you before it shows up around you. God is not just trying to change the situation, he's trying to change you. And that change doesn't happen until you keep walking, keep pressing, keep believing, even with the weight on your shoulders and the tears in your eye. You're closer than you think, so don't stop in the stretch. Don't bow to the burden. Don't retreat in the resistance. Push past the pain and keep walking. Some of you are praying for clarity, but what you really need is consistency. You keep asking, Lord, show me what's next. But God is saying, I'm watching how you handle what's now. Because how you treat the current assignment reveals whether you're ready for the next one. Everybody wants to be elevated, but few people want to be faithful. And you cannot step into greatness if you haven't learned how to be consistent in your daily responsibilities. It's not the big moves. It's the small, repeated steps that build the kind of life God can bless. We have been conditioned to chase the spectacular. We want instant results, quick returns, fast favor, but the kingdom doesn't operate on shortcuts. The kingdom moves on seeds. And seeds don't scream. Seeds don't shine. Seeds don't show off. They go underground. They do their best work in the dark. And so do you. When you are consistent, when you show up again and again, even without applause or attention, that's when the soil of your life starts to shift. That's when the roots go down deep. You don't need a spotlight to be fruitful. You need a process. And the problem is we get bored with process. We get weary in well-doing. We confuse routine with being stuck. But hear me, you're not stuck. You're being established. You're being anchored. You're being trained for something greater than you can currently see. And that's why the enemy isn't after your gifting. He's after your habits. Because he knows if he can disrupt your daily rhythm, he can dismantle your long-term progress. He's not worried about your big dreams. If he can keep you from doing the little things, he knows the vision won't matter if you never build the discipline to walk it out. That's why you get distracted. The moment you start to get consistent, that's why everything hits your life just as you find your stride. Because he knows what's at stake if you keep going. The enemy fears your faithfulness. He fears your daily yes. He fears the boring days when you still choose to pray. He fears the early mornings when nobody sees you but heaven. He fears the nights you cry and still show up for the assignment. Because every time you do it again, you're gaining ground. Every time you do it again, you're pushing through the barrier. Every time you do it again, you're training your spirit to lead, not your feeling. And it's the repetition that produces revelation. You want to see God more clearly? Stay consistent. You want to know what's next? Be faithful where you are. You want doors to open? Handle the room you're already in. Because when you prove to God that you can be faithful over this, he'll make you rule over that. But until then, he's watching how you treat what seems small, how you treat what seems insignificant, how you treat what nobody claps for. There's a blessing in the mundane. There's a breakthrough in the monotony. There's favor in your faithfulness. You're waiting on something big, but God is watching how you steward the small. And if you keep showing up, if you keep honoring the process, if you keep praying, even when you don't see results, worshiping, even when you feel dry, working, even when you don't feel inspired, something's going to break. Because the promise doesn't come just to those who start strong. It comes to those who stay consistent. You don't need more talent. You don't need more opportunities. You need discipline. You need to master the art of doing it again. You need to stop starting over every time it gets uncomfortable. You got to build some roots. You got to stay long enough in